Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews, and today we are finally catching up with MaXXXine. MaXXXine is the third movie by Ti West after X and Pearl, and it is connected to the same universe. This time following the story of Maxine Minx, a very successful and popular adult working actress, who's now looking to transfer over to the big screen of Hollywood, except there seems to be a Night Stalker killer on the loose. I was a really big fan of X and Pearl. I was so pleasantly surprised by X. I remember seeing the trailers and just being utterly confused as to what it even was. I had no idea where this was coming from, had never heard of Ti West, and if I'm being honest, the trailer did undersell it a little bit. It very much came across as a very cheesy B horror movie, which didn't exactly tantalise my senses and want me to rush straight in and see the first showing, but I'm really glad I did finally give it a chance and check it out because I was very pleasantly surprised by it, and it immediately put Ti West's name on the map for me, and I suddenly had my ear to the ground waiting to see whatever else he had up his sleeve. And then came Pearl, and I have to be honest, I actually liked Pearl even more than I liked X, and I rewatched it 2-3 nights ago just to make sure that my opinion still stays the same, and yeah, I still think that is a 10 out of 10 movie. I really have a lot of time for Pearl. So I was definitely excited to see MaXXXine, but what did I think about it? Well, let's dive into the positives. It's shot absolutely fantastically. I think Ti West is just so brilliantly talented at realising time periods in cinema. Across X, Pearl and MaXXXine, he has now managed to perfectly encompass and replicate 1918 as an era. He's also managed to tackle the 60s and 70s, and now he's moving into the 80s, early 90s. And it just feels seamless. It's almost effortless at times. He really does understand setting and theme and vibe, and he does a fantastic job bringing it to life here once again. I really like the cinematography. There's some fantastic wide shots that are just sat on stills and letting the scenery and the characters breathe. I thought that was great. I'm always a fan of that. It's edited really nicely as well. It's nothing over the top. It's quite subtle and smooth, but it is very nicely done. The music really delivers, again hitting the vibe and the theme of the timepiece and the characters as well. There is something quite grubby yet alluring about the general feel of the film, which does fit perfectly for the story that it's telling and the characters within it. I thought the cast were fantastic. Once again, Mia Goth, I'm never sure how to say the woman's name, but once again, she absolutely crushes it under Ti West's direction. They really are this generation's Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. Put them together and you're gonna get fireworks. But I also noticed that MaXXXine definitely has the biggest budget of these three movies, and they were able to bring in some much bigger names. I was really surprised to see Giancarlo Esposito here, and Kevin Bacon too, and both of them were excellent. Really great additions. But I do have just a handful of complaints. Sorry. And I suppose my biggest one is that this movie, MaXXXine, feels the least necessary of the three films. I won't go into spoilers and I will tiptoe very carefully here, but I don't think it really manages to land the plane all that well. It's a little bit lumpy and bumpy by the end, and I, for one, don't feel like all of the dots have been connected. It does feel a little bit cowardly in that regard. This is the third one of a trilogy. I just assumed this was going to be the big wrap-up, that we are going to tie up all of the loose ends, and we don't. We don't even really tie up that many loose ends at all, to be honest with you. So it can't help but feel a little bit inconsequential, and equally with its attachments to the previous films, again, it feels a little bit cowardly in how much it wants to tie itself down to things. So, it's hard to know how much you're really meant to take away from this movie. If you take it for what it is and just have a good time with it, then yeah, it's great. But if you're really looking for something to satisfy that overall story and narrative, I personally found it a little bit disappointing. I don't think it's all that well paced at times either. It's not crippling by any means, but considering the movie is, I think it's approaching an hour and 50 if I'm not mistaken, it still felt really long for that runtime. Especially towards the end. I was going pretty smoothly with it, but towards the end I admit I did check my watch a few times. It feels a little bit confused in what it ultimately is trying to say and what it wants to say, and I just think the ending really is where the problem is. I think it could have been so much tidier and maybe a little bit more profound as well, and come out with a much more striking message for the audience to walk away with, or even give them something a little bit more complex to chew on as they walk out the cinema. I don't really feel like MaXXXine did that, to be honest. I sat there, I watched it, I was given what I got, and that's MaXXXine. And for that, I had fun with it, but I can't help but pretend that I wanted a little bit more. So I'm going to give MaXXXine an 8 out of 10. I am still very much recommending this to you, but I do think it is the weakest of Ti West's 3 films so far. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. Have you seen MaXXXine? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy ginger, we can always click on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.